Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be having a think today about how the Just Too Easy tools can help you in the teaching of the world around us. My name is Charlie White and I'm one of the educational consultants here at Just Too Easy. Little bit of context about me, background about me just for context. I was a teacher. I trained in about 2012. I taught in a mainstream primary school for a few years. I moved to a school for children with social, emotional, mental health needs, and did a bit of supply across the primary age range as well before I had my daughter. And then I came to start doing some work for J2E. And when Nikki Kimball, for those of you who met her, went on her maternity leave, I started taking over some of her jobs, including these webinars that we're presenting with the C2K. So a bit of housekeeping before we start. We're scheduled to finish about 4:30 today. We started a little bit late, so it might be run over a little bit. It should be about a 40-minute webinar and then time for some questions at the end if you have any. Your video is muted. I think you should be able to unmute your sound if you want to as we're going through. Equally, if you want to ask questions via the chat, you can do that. We've got Sophie in the background today. Sophie's the office manager and probably can answer any questions that you might have better than I can. So also feel free to direct message Just Too Easy support in the chat. Today's webinar is going to be recorded and it will be made available here. So just for context, there are two J2E websites. We've got j2e.com, which is where you can find the tools, and we've got justtooeasy.com, which is the kind of main website. And you can, if you go to justtooeasy.com, go to the news tab and look for this tile here, you'll be able to view the webinars that have happened. Give us a couple of days for this one, but there's also the previous webinars up there, the introductory webinar, the language and literacy ones too. And also there you can book onto any future webinars. So we're in the middle of a series, which is just going through how the tools can help you with different areas of learning in the Northern Ireland curriculum. So just looking at lots of different ideas and activities, that kind of thing. So if you enjoyed today and you want to book on for the next one, please do. Or if you want to recommend to any colleagues, that would be great too. So for today, we're going to split the session kind of into two parts, really. We're going to look at content that your children can create for themselves using the tools. And we're going to look at content that you can create as a teacher for your children to use. We'll have some time for some questions at the end. And as always, I'll try and point you in the direction of further support if you need any. So we'll get started. So we're going to start off with thinking about content that your children can create. And we're going to start by using JIT, which is our Just Too Easy infant toolkit. And the JIT is made up of 8 different tools. And I'm going to start today looking at a couple of tools I haven't shown in depth in previous webinars. So I'm going to take you to my demo pupil, Harley. Harley can find JIT on his Launchpad. It's this orange tile here. And there along the top are the different tools within JIT. And we're going to start with Animate. Just need to move that away. Animate is this pink tab here. Now, just like every other tool in JIT, we get our template box come up, which will allow us to choose backgrounds if we want some. We've got some preset template backgrounds there. Or we can click on the Pictures tab. We can see any pictures that are in my files, anything that's been shared with us. We could do a safe Google search for a picture for our background. I've got one here I want to use. Harley's created this picture in JIT Paint. He saved it as an image and then it's come up here for him to use as a background. And this is going to be as part of a weather topic, and we're going to create a snowy day scene. Really nice, really simple animation. Great for your youngest children, because all I'm going to ask them to do is to select the colour white, to make the paintbrush kind of medium size, and to dot some snow onto the background. And we will create, this is how we create our first frame. So we'll just really roughly dot white everywhere. This can be done on a tablet or a laptop. And when we're happy with that, we're going to add our next frame. We do that by clicking on this green plus button here. That will copy just the background without the snow on it. What it will do is show you, if you can see, this is called onion skinning. It's the imprint of where the snow was on the last page. So I'll then ask my children to put some more snow on this page in a slightly different place. Doesn't need to be in any way perfect, just dotted all over in a different place to before. I'm just going to do this for a few frames. If I was doing it with my children, I'd get them to do quite a lot of frames. But just for now, I'll add another one with that green plus. I'll put them in a different place again, and I'll just stick with 3 frames for now because it will give you the idea. Really nice and easy for even your youngest children to do. And if I now press play, which is this green button at the bottom of the animation here, you'll see we have a really lovely snowy effect, and you could get your children to do 10-15 frames of that to create a lovely animation of snow. And that's a really basic example of what we can do with Animate. It can get an awful lot more complicated. So just as an example, I will show you an animation that's been created in JIT Animate that would be better for older children. And this is looking at the water cycle. So you can see we can do things that are more complicated with this too. And when children have finished, they can give it a name. They can save it. That's in this toolbar on the top left here. This orange circle will save it. If I save that, that will save it into 2 places. That will save it into Harley's My Files area. That will also save it into the pupils files section of My Files as a teacher. And if Harley's really pleased with his work, he could click on the button next to it, which is the publish button. And that will push it to towards the class blog. I would have to moderate that first as a teacher. I'm not going to go into much more about that now, but as always, if you look at the help tile on the Launchpad, you can get a bit more information on how to do that if you need it. So that's JIT Animate. Really, really lovely tool. Children really enjoy it. It can take a lot of time over those. I'm going to look next at JIT Branch, which is this purple tab at the top here. And this is our tool for creating branching databases. So it's really great for looking at categorization, so for your science, that kind of thing. Great tool to use here. Another one that's quite useful for your older children as well, although it's in the infant toolkit, still got uses for older children too. Here I'm going to select a blank background. And on the left, I have a picture library. I can see the kind of preset pictures there. I can access anything in my files if I want to. And I can also do a Google search if I want to. And what I need to do is just to put some items into this box to start classifying. So animals will be a really obvious one. I'm going to do a plants one for today. So I'm just going to pop in 4 pictures for now. You can pop in as many as you want. Just click on those and they'll appear in the box. I'm going to choose a sunflower, a dandelion, daisy, and a rose. As I said, you can put lots more in that, but that will take longer to sort. So I'm just going to stick for 4 for now. And then I'll click here on the bottom to move this out of the way where it says sort. And what it will do now is prompt me for some questions to help split up these pictures. So my first question might be, do I grow wild in the grass? And then I need to sort those pictures into yes and no. So we can put our daisy in yes, our dandelion, a sunflower, and our rose in no. And then I'll click OK. And then it will prompt me to split those up further. So I might say, do I have white petals? Sort those again into yes and no. And lastly, I have thorns. And what I can do is click OK, and it will create for me my branching database. If I click the play button, I can have a go at checking to see if that works. So I can choose one of those. We'll go for a daisy. Do I grow wild in the grass? Yes. Do I have white petals? Yes. And that is correct. That's a daisy. Now, that's working on the simple mode. There is an advanced mode too that works in exactly the same way, but allows children to put in a name and some information about the pictures as well as just the picture. So you can see quite a specific tool, but some really lovely uses there for your science in particular. So we'll come out of this now. Again, I have the option to save that work if I wanted to. We're going to carry on with our child created content. Just a couple more examples here of work that's been created in JIT. So using JIT Write, this piece of writing about St. Patrick has been created. Now, the lovely thing about JIT Write in terms of the world around us is, as a teacher, if I have an image that I want my children to use as their background for their piece of writing, if that's in my files, I can then share that with my children. And once I've shared that with my children, they can load it as a background in that original template box. So nice for kind of topic writing there. JIT Mix is our tool for creating ebooks with lots of pages. There's lots of uses for this, but what I've done here, we've created some recounts of a trip that we've been on. So lots of different pages, photographs loaded in. These could be photographs that the children took on the trip, if you had a class camera there with you, or photographs that you found as well. And they can be loaded into a JIT Mix file with the writing about the trip there. So just obviously lots of different ideas for things you can do with Mix, but that's a nice one in terms of looking at the world around us. I'm going to press on now, and I'm going to move to content that your children can create using J2E5. So looking a bit more at what our older children can create. I'm going to take you back to Harley, my demo pupil. And again, he can find J2E5 from the Launchpad. It's this red tile here. J2E5 is our digital blank piece of paper. So it can do all sorts of different things, which I hope I'll give you a bit of a flavour of now. If I click on this red open folder button in the top toolbar, I can load up some of the work that Harley's been creating. And first of all, I'm going to show you this quiz that your children can create. The idea of this is that at the end of a topic, children can show you what they've learned by creating a quiz for their friends to complete. So we've been learning about the human body, and Harley's come up with some questions. Which organ is a pump, for instance, and he wants us to click on the correct answer. So if I click on the heart, you'll see a tick appears, or the stomach, a cross will appear. And Harley's created that. I'll show you how now. If I go into edit mode, first of all, he's just popped a background on the page that he liked, and he just done that in the bottom here, paper background. He's typed in J2E5. There's no formatting issues with typing. We can literally click and type anywhere. He's then popped some pictures on the page. We find pictures in our picture library. Now that's this green icon in the top toolbar in the middle. That's our picture library. And he's dragged those onto the page. He's typed underneath. So if I just give you an example, I'll finish this last question for him. We'll take this picture of the kidneys. And we just drag that onto the page. Really, really easy to use. Can resize. We can type kidneys. Now, the font that Harley's been using here is the Lexant font. I like to draw people's attention to that because they were designed to be really useful for some children with dyslexia. If I now select the image and the writing, I can group those together. And what he did to create that effect, that kind of self-marked the work, was he simply added a picture on top of each of these pictures of a tick or a cross. So obviously kidneys here would be the wrong answer. So if I grab this cross, put it over the top and resize it. And what we're going to do then is to animate that picture. So while it's still highlighted, I'll go to the animate button, which is in the bottom right-hand corner down here. I'm going to animate it so that it appears, and the trigger is start on click. And if I now go back to view mode and click on the kidneys, we can see that that's the wrong answer. So Harley can, I mean, this quiz could be about any topic that you've been learning about. When he's done, he can save it with this button up here, this red button. Again, that will save to his My Files, and the pupils files area of your My Files as a teacher. You can then share that with his friends if he wants to, with this little purple icon of the two people here. You could share that with his class, with friends in his class, so that they could then have a go at the quiz he's created. So a really fun interactive activity that's still showing you just what he's learned. On a different note, I'm going to show you a different activity that's been created in J2E5. And I like this one because it really shows how lovely things can look that have been created in this tool. So I'm going to put this into view mode. This was at the end of a topic on ancient Greece, and what I asked the children to do was to create a travel brochure. So just a bit of a different way of them telling me what they've learned about ancient Greece. And this is a multi-page document. So if I click down here, I'll go to the next page. And you can see quite simply, all he's done is to add photographs and writing, but it just looks really lovely. A really nice different way of showing what he's learned about ancient Greece. I'm going to show you a few more examples now of things that have been created in J2E5. We've got here a poster. So this was a topic about space, and we've made a poster about how to survive in space. So you can choose a really appropriate background, an appropriate font. We've put in the pictures. Again, as I said, it's so easy to format. It was easy to line up those pictures so they're perfectly in line, and to line up the text and to align it to the right, just to make it look really quite professional. Here we have a poster about the Wright brothers, and this is a bit of an e-poster because although it's got text and pictures and information, in J2E5 we can also embed other things, other content that's been created in J2E, or even videos from places like YouTube. So here at the bottom of this poster, we've got a video about the Wright brothers that's been embedded onto that poster. It's just another couple of ideas there for you for content that your children can create. I'm going to move on now quite swiftly to content that you can create as a teacher for your children to use. So obviously there's lots of ways your children can use the tools, but especially for younger children, it can be useful to create things for them so that they can still get the most out of these tools. And I'm going to start with looking at J2 Whiteboard. Now, J2 Whiteboard looks a lot like J2E5, but with a few little differences. So we have some movable toolbars. We find our picture library in a slightly different place. This is not a tool that's on your children's Launchpad. It's not a tool you're going to share content with your children, but you can create content to display on your whiteboard for your younger children, especially to use. So I'll show you a couple of things I've created in that vein. We'll start with this activity, which is a bit of a picture sort. So sort these pictures to show whether they're living or not living. And with J2 Whiteboard, once a picture is on there, it can just be moved. So we could move, children could come up to the whiteboard and move the sunflower into living things, get a lot of discussion going about that, and really get their scientific brains thinking. And just to show you how we add pictures here, here's this toolbar on the right, it says media, and we can see a similar kind of picture library, so we can see things that are in our My Files. We can do a little safe Google search, so I could add a picture of a dog, for instance, and pop that in there. And then I could resize that really easily. Just a really nice discussion activity there for your children. A couple of other activities that I have created in J2 Whiteboard. Here, what I've done is I've created a treasure map. And this is a map of a classroom. It's to start to get my children thinking about their early map reading skills. So just using, I've just drawn on lines and shapes to make this map. And I've put this little red cross down here. And I want my children, maybe during free flow time, to just have a look at this map and see if they can find whatever it is I want them to find, whether that's a message or a bit of treasure, whatever that might be. I'm just starting with those early map reading skills. Again, when I've created these activities, I have the option to save. It's just in this top toolbar here. And I can, in the load box, find other activities I've created. And the last one to show you in here is this jigsaw. Now we can create jigsawed images in J2E5 and J2 Whiteboard. If I just turn this back into a photograph here, this was thinking about comparing then and now, changes over time. So the idea would be to get a photograph of your town from many years ago. And then if you look on the right here, while this image is selected, I have the option to convert it to a jigsaw. As I said, we can do that on J2E5 as well. I can scatter those pieces. I can select to scatter it on load. I can give a hint if I wanted to, which will kind of show me the outline of the picture. And then we can work on that picture. Now, if I can find a couple of pieces that fit together, you can see when they're in the right place, they do click beautifully together. So that displayed on the whiteboard would be a really nice activity for your children to get on with. Okay, I'm going to move back into J2E5 now, because J2E5 is a really great tool. Although it's for your children to use, it's probably for your older sort of upper Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2 children. You can really make some lovely activities for your younger children using this. So I'll go back to this load button. First of all, I'm going to show you this ordering activity. So this is about the life cycle of a butterfly. And these pictures have all been made movable so that my children can come into this activity and put the pictures in order. Deliberately left one out to show you how I've done that. So if I go back into the edit mode at the top here, I can come back into my picture library, which is this green one here. Find this picture of the butterfly and put it on the page. What I've done while it's highlighted is just to make the edges rounded. That's up in the top right hand side here. I can resize it. And then to make sure that even in view mode, those pictures can be moved, while the picture is highlighted, I want to find this little button down in the bottom right hand corner, which is 4 little arrows pointing away from each other. That's our details button. And that gives me the option, excuse me, to make those pictures movable. So I put that wherever I want it to go back into view mode. There's my final picture and my children can move it around. The reason I added the little picture of the microphone is as a little extension really. So if my children have put all those pictures in order, they can choose to go into edit mode. They can click on the microphone and what they can do is they can add some sound to that. So they could record some sound of themselves talking through the life cycle of a butterfly. And they do that by highlighting that picture and going to this other green button in the toolbar that looks like a little megaphone and a camera reel. They can click to record sound. They can press the record button. They might say, I don't know, a caterpillar hatches from an egg. And they can talk about what they know. And then add that to the selection. And when they click on that, in view mode, when they click on that, it will play that bit of sound. A caterpillar hatches from an egg. If they then save that, again, just like before, that will save to their My Files as a separate, that won't write over the document that I've saved and shared. So I'm going to have saved it. I'm going to have clicked on those 2 purple people to share that with my children. And they can work on this activity. They can save that. It will save as a copy to their My Files and the pupils file section of My Files. Just to show you an example of this same activity for older children, I've done the same here for the events of World War II. It's quite a versatile idea. Next activity I'm going to show you within J2E5 is this continent labelling activity. Now, what I've done here is simply popped in a picture of a map with no writing on it, and I've given a little instruction up here. This is the hardest level of this activity because once I've saved it and shared it with my children, I don't want them to open it, to go into edit mode and just to type the names of the continents. As I said, you can type anywhere, so they can just type on the names of the continents. I've differentiated this. So on the next page, I've added a hint button, just like I did before with the sound. It's just a picture of a question mark. So if we click on it,
load the word list continents to help you.
I then go back into edit mode and that so I've prompted my children to load a word list to help. They would do that by clicking on this blue W in the top. Now, I've already loaded a word list to this page. So when they click on this, it will load that word list into the bottom for them. I'm just going to move this tool right across. They can click where they want the word to go, click on the word, and it will type it for them. Now, I added that in the same place. That blue W up there has some preset word lists already. Those are my word lists. We've got some preset word lists. The little pink plus over here allows me to add a new word list. And as long as I'd shared that with my children over here, when I save this piece of work, that word list will be there. If I can choose to get rid of that word list will still be there, but now they can open it if they want it. I've done a third level of differentiation here. And what I've done for this one is type the names of the continents. And just like I did with the previous activity, I made those words movable so that children can just drag those labels into the right place. And again, that was saved and shared with my children. Okay, I'm going to move on to a couple of other tools now that haven't been looked at in quite so much depth in previous webinars. So we're going to start with J2 data. Really useful for thinking about the world around us. So pictogram and chart, I'm not going to go into today. They're quite self-explanatory, and within the help tile, there's a lot of information on those there. Pictogram makes pictograms, chart, children can put in data and create all sorts of different charts and graphs. Branch we've looked at. And then we have database. Database is our tool for loading and working with and creating databases. So in here, we have some examples. We can see, for instance, the Titanic database is really popular that's in there. Or we can create databases that we can then share with our children for them to input data into and work with. We do that by first defining our fields. I'm going to load up an example now that I've created. And the idea for this activity is that my children will have been on a mini beast hunt. And I want them to come back from their mini beast hunt and put what the mini beasts they found into a database. So I created fields for the name, colour, number of legs, did it have a shell, exoskeleton, or neither, and for children to put in a photograph. I have then saved that up here at the top and shared it with my children. So if I now take you back to my demo pupil, back to his Launchpad. He can load, it will be in his shared files. He can load that up. And he can add a new record to my database. So let's say he saw a ladybird. Oops, excuse my spelling. So it was red and black. And it had, I want to say, 6 legs. He could find a photograph. If he had taken a photograph, he could upload that. Oh, it's not my camera. Or I can do a little search for a photograph. And find a picture of a ladybird there. And add that to the record. He can then save that record. If I take you to this table now, we can see all of the mini beasts, and as different children in the class uploaded those, they would appear on this table. We can have lots of discussions about that as a class. We can generate some charts in the chart tab here. So I could create a pie chart, for instance, to show the mini beast that we saw in the class. So lots of lovely discussion to be had around that kind of an activity. And also just to note, actually, those that can be saved. It can also be saved as an image, which could then be used in a J2E5 file, for instance, and discussed that way. And that would be down here, just on the bottom left. Get rid of this now. We'll come back here. And the last thing I'm going to talk about today is J2 Vote. Now, J2 Vote is our tool for creating polls that we can share with our children. So it could be used for things like voting for a class representative. What I want to show you now here is an idea for using J2 Vote to test and check your children's knowledge of something they've learned about. So I'm going to create a new poll, and I do that by clicking on this tick over on the right hand side. I can give my voter name. So let's say we've been learning about World War II, and I can type in a question. What year did World War II start? And then it will prompt me to put in some answers. So put in some range of answers for my children to choose from. And I have the option to select which answer is correct. I could click on this green arrow down here, and that would let me add another question to my poll. I could save it up here at the top. I could publish that to my class blog. Now, because I'm a teacher, that will go straight to the class blog. Give it a second. There we go. And my children can now go to J2 Webby, which is where we find our class blog. Go into my class. They can now see that vote, and they can vote on it. So they can put in their answers. It will prompt them to put in their name, and that vote has been accepted. So if I now take you back to my view as a teacher, here we are. I can now click on this button at the top, which looks like a little grid, and I can see the results. Now it will put it as a graph for me, but what's really useful for this type of an activity is to click on this table here at the bottom right. And that will show me that Harley got the question right. So that's a really useful way, perhaps at the end of a lesson, direct my children to the blog, and they can answer a few questions about what we've learned, and I can just get some really instant feedback on how they found that lesson. And that is about what I have got for ideas today. As usual, if you have any questions at the end of this, I know I went through it quite quickly, you can look in the help tile first of all, and there's lots of information about how to use all of those tools today. As I said before, this webinar has been recorded, so give us a couple of days and pop back to the Just Too Easy website, and you'll be able to see. So if you want to go through some of those activities at your own pace, you're very welcome to do so. If you still have questions, please do email support@J2E. You will get Sophie. She will be very able to answer your questions. And other places to direct you to are our Twitter and our Facebook account. Often we get schools that will share ideas of things they've done with us, so you can get lots of ideas that way too. And yeah, just again, as a reminder, this is where you can view previous webinars, but you can also book on to future webinars. I will try not to repeat any ideas. So if you've enjoyed today and you want to come to a future webinar, please do that. And you'll hopefully get lots more good ideas too. That's about it for me. So if you have any questions, do feel free to unmute yourself and ask, and I will do my best to answer. Thank you for coming along today.